Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my YouTube channel. Today, we are going to be talking about the downfall of a game that needs no introduction. Five Nights at Freddy's. This game not only set a standard for horror indie games, but also became the standard for indie horror games. The game came out in 2014, made by game developer Scott Cawthon. Since then, there's been over 11 entries, multiple series of books, and a movie and an upcoming sequel to said movie. But in today's video, we are talking about why the series has fallen off after FNAF Ultimate Custom Night. Let's get started. Five Nights at Freddy's in 2014 was a smash hit. All thanks to Scott Cawthon himself and the game, but also because of the YouTubers. You got Let's Play YouTubers like Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, CoryX Kenshin, PewDiePie, all playing the game. It had a simple amount of lore in case if the game popped off, it could be expanded upon. However, due to the success of Five Nights at Freddy's 1, a few months later, FNAF 2 came out, and then shortly thereafter, FNAF 3, and so on and so forth. Now, when I said MCU, like, downfall, what I meant is what the MCU was Iron Man 1 to Endgame to then post-Endgame Marvel. It's the same thing here. For example, Five Nights at Freddy's 1, great introduction, just like Iron Man 1. You had FNAF 2, which was a semi-divisive one, but generally well accepted. That is like a Captain America First Avenger. And then you have FNAF 3, which is the dark world of the FNAF universe. FNAF 4 is the Age of Ultron of the FNAF universe. FNAF Sister Location is the Thor Ragnarok of the series. But finally, the last two entries of the original saga, Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator, is the equivalent to Avengers Infinity War in the FNAF universe. And then Ultimate Custom Night was the end game of the FNAF universe. It started off great and it ended great. But what the MCU did was it got rid of all of its core characters that they spent almost a decade getting to know and love. Five Nights at Freddy's ended with all of the characters that we spent 5 to 6 years building love and connection with, and ended it all. And then it jumped off with brand new characters that really didn't go anywhere. Same thing with the MCU. Sam Wilson, Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau. You got FNAF with Gregory, Vanny, Vanessa, Glitch Trap, and so many others. The problem with post Ultimate Custom Night FNAF is it has no reason to continue because Ultimate Custom Night ended a complete saga. Williams started as a character with his arrogant, cocky attitude, and Ultimate Custom Night was the complete polar opposite of it. Michael Afton had the opposite reaction. He started off as a bad guy, as a bully, and then he came full circle in Pizzeria Simulator and ended everything once and for all. It had a complete story arc. It had a good ending that everyone was content with. But now they bring Afton back in Security Breach. Potentially Michael in Security Breach, but that's unconfirmed, so I'm not going to say that he is. And then you have the Crying Child reincarnate, in that case being Gregory. And so, with that being said, I believe, and I strongly believe this, by the way, that Five Nights at Freddy's should have ended with Ultimate Custom Night. It ended in such a perfect way. The story went full circle. Everyone had their arcs. Because what happened was now you have like Security Breach who introduced Vanny, which was the next Afton, I guess. Which I'll talk about how to fix her and actually make her a memorable character in the second part. How to fix postmodern, post Ultimate Custom Night FNAF. But you know, you had a lot of wasted potential. Gregory was There's a lot of things to say about Gregory, but basically he's just Gregory's Gregory. He's just a normal average kid who happens to have the ability to kill animatronics, like snap of his fingers for some reason. You have Vanny or Glitch Trap, which appeared in one game prior to the introduction. With William Afton, you have FNAF 2 showing... Well, actually, no, sorry. You had FNAF 1, which showed that he was arrested, and they did find him, but they could not hold him captive, or they not captive, in contempt because there's no evidence against it because they couldn't find the kids. FNAF 2 showed the murders and showed who he was. FNAF 3 showed us what happened to him, why he didn't appear for a long time. FNAF 3, the main game, is focused on William after the Springlock incident. FNAF 4 is the family dynamic, showing how the Afton family worked. FNAF 5 gave us the name and personality of William Afton, then FNAF 6 on Ultimate Custom Night was his final downfall. But what Security Breach did was it brought him back, which undoes Ultimate Custom Night and Pizzeria Simulator. What it does, it just feels ingenuine to have that ending, and then to have them just undo it because they wanted to bring Afton back. So I guess with that being said, those are just my those are just my main issues with modern FNAF. Let's get into how do we fix modern FNAF to bring it back to the golden age of Five Nights at Freddy's. Okay, so one of the biggest things we gotta talk about is Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. There's nothing I can say without bringing up Vanny and or Glitch Trap, depending on how you view the character. She was overplayed by Gregory in her own game. Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted did a great job at establishing Glitch Trap to be like a digital mimic of Afton, which is the mimicking William Afton. And then Vanny was supposed to be his successor, I guess. I don't really know. She wasn't really there in the game. However, I have an idea on how to fix that. I'm not going to change Security Breach. Everything's going to play out the same way, but I'm going to change details and some of the story to make it fit better, especially with William Afton's return. Number one, if I could change the game in any way, shape, or form, I would remove the Afton boss fight 100%. That boss fight was terrible. It doesn't make sense, and they had to retcon it in Ruin because Scott, for some unforeseen reason, decided to give the devs 10% of the story, and then the devs took 90% of it in their own hands. And then Scott was like, well, that sucks, so let's retcon it all, and he did. And now none of it makes sense, which is the other reason post Ultimate Custom Night FNAF sucks, is because there isn't a clear story. There was a more or less clear story with FNAF 1 to Ultimate Custom Night, but I feel like Help Wanted to, Sicko the Mimic is so convoluted because it just adds new villains every game instead of just having one consistent one. Which, I guess the consistent one now is the Mimic. So here's how I would fix the main villain from Security Breach, Vanny. Have her be a copycat villain. Now, when I say what I'm about to say, don't hate on me. This is just the only way I can visualize it to make it make sense for what the story is. Have her be a copycat. We see in one of the endings that there's more missing children. She does remnant experiments just like William did. She finds the corpse of William from Pizzeria Simulator, sorry. This is a perfect opportunity to retcon Scrap Trap and to bringing in like a burnt Spring Trap, which is what should have been in Pizzeria Simulator, but he could have retconned that to give us a better design. That would have been a nice retcon. Anyway, so Vanny's whole goal is to get kids take the remnant and basically power William back up so he has enough power to overpower Cassidy to come back from his purgatory. Now, I know that sounds really stupid, but hear me out on this one. Bring Michael back. He's in Glamrock Freddy. You can have him have a redemption, a final redemption, because you have Gregory, who is basically, let's be honest, the Crying Child reincarnate. Let's be completely honest with ourselves. It could have been Michael, for the last time, proving to his brother that he isn't who he was. And so, because what I think could have worked is having the Crying Child possess Gregory for some reason. I don't know how that would work. And then have Michael possess Glamrock Freddy. They work together to take down William. Number one, that gives Vanny a character arc, a character reason, and motivation. And it's plausible. It makes sense because we know Remnant exists, we know how it works, and we know that William did it. Like, in the basement of the Pizzeria Simulator, it could have been like an entire shrine, like some fanatics of serial killers have. They have like a whole shrine to whatever person they're like copying. It could have been something like that. You know, you have like the corpse of William. You have, you know, a bunch of experimental things. You have a bunch of power getting sucked down there. You have, you know, a board with all the crimes and timelines all like together with like string and whatnot. And then you have, you know, obviously Vanny wearing like an off-brand but yet on-brand to what William wore, just so that she's different with quotes. That way it gives her a personality, it gives her motivation, but most importantly, it gives her a actual villain arc. Now, again, I don't like William coming back, but if they're going to bring him back, at least do it in a way William would, like bring him back, because like what Security Breach didn't do was they didn't explain how he got out of Ultimate Custom Night for Security Breach, because what happened was William originally took over the VR headset and then became Glitch Trap, but it was retconned in Ruin to be the mimicking William. Again, all retcon, so I don't know why Acton was back if they had to retcon it, whatever. That's the way I would fix Security Breach. Have the same gameplay, but just change Gregory's motivation to be one of his friends went in the pizzeria and never came back out. So he went in there and investigated and found out that, like, Vanny was controlling the animatronics to, you know, defend the basement or whatever, you know, get rid of threats that would make it so that she would be caught, right? That gives her motivation to why she's hunting down Gregory in the first place. Sorry, I forgot his name. And then in Ruin, it would be Cassie. What I think could have been fun to play with was after he came back in Security Breach, he defeated Vanny and William defeated Gregory and Glamrock Freddy. Cassie then goes into the pizzeria after like a distress signal from Gregory is, you know, sounded. She then goes to the pizzeria, finds them, repairs them, and then a showdown goes down. And after this, finally defeated because they do something with his remnant where they take his remnant and they destroy it somehow, finalizing his character. So no more like he's not in like his own hell in his mind. He's gone. Like there's nothing left of him. And then Michael finally moves on, and so does the Crying Child. And then Gregory is dead, obviously. That is just the way I think I can see it. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense. I know it's really stupid. But, like, that just kind of leads to my point from the first section, which is the story just doesn't make sense anymore. It's just 1 through Ultimate Custom Night was believable because it wasn't like astronomical things. It was a guy wearing a suit who lured kids into a back room using probably just a friendly voice and like, hey, I got pizza in the back, come here. And then kills them, right? And like the possession thing made sense because it was explained thoroughly. It was shown, not told. And that, I like that better. And so with that being said, that's how I would fix post Ultimate Custom Night was... Actually, I would just stop. I would have just stopped it at Ultimate Custom Night, and then do like I like Into the Pit because it's its own contained universe. Do like a new thing. Do something that's not in this universe, but do like an alternative thing, or do like a what if type thing, right? So it's not in this story because now. What Scott's doing is he looks at the story and he goes, hold on, wait a minute. They like mystery. Let's just keep adding to it and adding to it and adding to it, but not adding any context or answers. It's just adding for the sake of content. And that's not what makes FNAF because what Scott did was every game he added new pieces of lore. FNAF 1 was the court stuff, saying that someone was caught, kids went missing. Simple as that. FNAF 2 showed who killed them and how they die and how did they get possessed. FNAF 3 was what became of the killer. FNAF 4 was what became of Michael after he killed his brother and how his brother possessed Golden Freddy. That answered that question. But then left in question, which was the box. You then have FNAF 5, which is Michael's backstory, which then backs up why he was in FNAF 1 and number 2. Then you have FNAF 6, which is everyone dies. And then you have the culmination of all 6 games, which is Ultimate Custom Night, which is William's Eternal Punishment. And then you also have FNAF World, which is the mental hellscape of the crying child's mind after he got bit. That was the spirits coming together, putting the pieces back together, right? They all had a contained story, but it tied to one another, just like the MCU. Every movie was a contained story, but it connected to each other in some way, shape, or form. So did FNAF 1 through Ultimate Custom Night. But it feels like they're all disconnected. They are separate projects, but they don't tie well enough because it doesn't add anything. It asks more questions than it answers. And I feel like that's drawing more people away instead of to the franchise. Anyway, let me guys know what you guys think in the comments. These are just my thoughts on how do we get back. It's just tie everything together or start answering questions. Just start answering more questions. Make a game that like takes place in between, say, like FNAF 2, like FNAF 1 and FNAF 3, where Michael has to like live a day-to-day, and then he has like, FNAF 4 stuff, like kind of like Into the Pit, right? Like he lives a day-to-day life. How does he live for 30 years? What does he do? And then what does he like, and then the FNAF 4 events, which is like, him having nightmares and whatnot. That would be interesting. How about a game where like, how did William kill the kids, right? Like how about a William-centered game? Have a William-centered game. Or have like I don't know. I think the big one would be like a Michael Afton simulator type sitch with like sister location-esque things. You have things to do, and then you have like a main thing at the end, and then you're done, right? I like that format. I think that would work cool. So yeah, my final statement, and just to sum up this video, start answering questions. Stop asking more. Make games in between the games so it is part of that contained story. And that gives people a chance to get back with the characters that they fell in love with from FNAF 1 to Ultimate Custom Night. And not have to like, a new character. Another new character. A new villain. Just start answering us questions. And then, like, once every, say, 4 years, then introduce a new game that expands after that. but still like keep it contained to an extent, right? That's all I have to say for this video. Thank you all for watching. I hope you like this style of video. Let me know if you want more. But anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. See you guys later.